connected. Let's check that I'm not stealing Andrei Danilov's streaming capacities. No, I'm streaming in my channel. Great. Yeah, it has happened a couple of times by accident, like that I have his streaming key and yeah. Okay, friends, so like I told you a couple of weeks ago, I'm kind of like doing this for my own mental sanity, just so I can use some content that I developed for the EPO for you, that I think it has some use in your life. Last week, I think Liera can tell you guys online, we had a pretty cool one. Yeah, we were kind of alone. I think there was nobody else there. It was only Liera and Sultan here with us. And Lala was with us online. I really invite you to go and watch that video one day. It's the lecture about pop music. It's really good. Well, I mean, I don't know. I hope it's really good. I really liked it. And it also will build into, I mean, when we get to the hip hop lecture, there will be a lot of the things that we discussed about pop music that will be relevant in that moment. Now you can always tell me like, man, this is a music production of a single course. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm building an argument here. Like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we watching this Aranjerovkin style? Well, obviously, like I said initially, it's mostly because I need to not die and I don't want to like be so tired. So I needed to use the other material. So I'm honest with that. But also, I really think that this is going to expand your paliter as a musicians to have these discussions with me and to think about them. And I will also put you to write music in other genres. So I'll start doing this from next week. So just so you know. What else is going to come ahead in this module? We will see hip hop and electronic music, and that's it. And then we go back to songwriting tools and production tools. Okay, so that sounds pretty cool. I can ignore this right now. So, well, you remember this. This was from a couple of years ago. Like we had these conversations about rhythm, and I always like to start this because obviously discussing Latin music is mostly discussing rhythm, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But this was some joke that Yaroslav and I were making. If you guys know a little bit about music theory, you would be laughing as hard as I was. I mean, you have to understand that this is like
Joe, we still don't see the screen.
you don't see the screen. Sorry. So this is excuse me for that. Here we go. So, and by the way, let me check that you're listening from the right place. Привет, Olga. Oh, Maximov too here. Great. We have a good what's the name? Quorum for this lecture. That's really great. So okay. I mean, I was just kidding. When I saw this, I was exploding of laughter. Haha, this was so cool. I mean, Yaroslav sent me this thing, which is like this impossible to play things one day, and whatever. That's just interesting. So. In the previous time I gave this lecture, I just want to remind you, I had Yaroslav as a guest, and I'm giving him a little bit of like pushed here to his YouTube channel and everything, because Yaroslav gifted to us access to something really important. He wrote a book called Polyrhythmic Possibilities together with a teacher called Enrique de Almeida, and this is a link to get that book. And also Yaroslav, when we had a conversation with him last time, he shared with us a couple of songs that carry. This is extra material for you to check out later. He shared out with for us some songs that are really classic, like in the hip hop world and stuff, that use some Latino resources. And this is why I put this material here. He gave us a gift. This is a Berkeley lecture, like from Berkeley School of Music, about Imina, the clave, the concept of the clave, and what is the concept of the clave. And this is some extra resource if you guys are interested to explore it. When we finish the lecture, you will see how important the clave is for Latin music. And so Yaroslav, because he's working with a teacher in Berkeley, he gave us access to this material that you can download and check it out. Like if you want later, it's an extra lesson about the use of the clave alone. The clave is a Latino music resource that you can use very much. And yeah, I mean, there are some clave, rumba, clave, etc. I just wanted you to know that this extra material is there thanks to Yaroslav. This was a joke that we discussed in the past. I discussed this joke with you already, that in reality there cannot be beat makers but rhythm makers, and so it's a bit of a refried conversation that we had in the past. And I just wanted to leave that module of Yaroslav behind, so you can check it out later on your own time. And to remind you about him, I hope you remember him. He was a guest in one of our lectures once. I wanted him to be a lecturer today, but a guest today, but he is too busy because he is the official. I mean, he runs the TAS division of Asia, this person. And so he was very busy with the Xi Jinping visit to Moscow because he was working on this. So that's why he couldn't be with us today, unfortunately. So I want us to discuss the historical considerations that gave way to Caribbean and Latin culture in the 20th century. I want us to identify the characteristics of Caribbean and Latin music. I want to explore notable subgenres of artists that have rocked the Caribbean and Latin scene. And I want to explore cases of music production and discuss some decisions that were made about Latino music in general and how we can use it. My goal is that when this course ends, you guys can feel that you can use Latin music as well as part of your singles and the music that you're producing. And if we can achieve that, I would be really happy. So I can delete this. Sorry, I'm taking this from the DPO, so I don't need that. So I ask you a question. Is Caribbean music or Latin music really influential? Or are we just saying this because Leo is Venezuelan and this is nostalgic and he is nostalgic about his homeland? What do you guys think?
Like in every genre. Because, you know, like some rhythmic patterns, like for example, Tresillo,
Da?
you can find this using like a lot of pop music using this Tresillo rhythm.
Yes.
Pattern, not only on drums or percussion, but also in like guitars or synths, etc.
Yes.
So
yeah, definitely.
It is definitely inspiration. Yeah.
And so the whole argument of this lecture, the reason why this lecture exists, is I want to answer a question. It's like, think about this. Russia has 150 million people, and the Caribbean has like 18 million. It's like, why Caribbean music is more important than Russian music if more people play it? So that's kind of one of the things I want to answer with this lecture. And I asked this question, like, is Caribbean music really influential? And I was joking back then when I created this lecture initially, let the Grammys decide. So this was the Grammys of 2023 and how they started. Well, and that's how the Grammys started, like last year. So it was like some guy from the Dominican Republic called Bad Bunny playing some merengue in your face, and there was like Taylor Swift dancing to this, and it was all like super awkward, and all these Americans kind of pretending that they can dance. So, I mean, let not Leo, the Venezuelan guy, decide if Latin music is relevant. Let the Grammys decide, for example. And as you can tell, like obviously Latin American music is really influential in the world. So let's explore a little bit on why. So when obviously when we're talking about Latino music, we're talking about my world. I understand it very well from the bottom up. I lived it in Latin America when I was living there, and I experienced it through the eyes of my people and the eyes of my culture. And the first thing we have to talk about when we talk about Latino music is that it is mostly a ulična mudrost or sabiduría callejera, Yashuchutam like type of music. It's music that comes from the streets, is done on the streets in a very informal way. And it's a very participative music where a lot of people participate in one thing. It's kind of like very horizontal hierarchy of music. I mean, there is nothing like the director who directs the whole thing. It's something that happens spontaneously on the streets in an improvised form. And as you will see today, it has certain characteristics and important factors that we need to talk about that is going to make you understand it better. And hopefully it's going to help you to it's going to give you an opportunity to start using this type of rhythms in your world if you don't use them already. But yeah, I mean, the ulična mudrost in Latin America is key. And same for the musicians. This image that you're seeing there, of these guys that are playing in the streets, obviously it's a super classical thing of Latin music. And it's very, again, horizontal structure where there is not so much musical hierarchies and people who are more, I don't know, like veneer or something. Everybody's kind of like really, really given the opportunity of making music. I'm kind of like gearing up and preparing us for how the lecture is going to be. And first, I want you to put yourself and imagine that this happens outside of academia. That's kind of the first point that I'm trying to tell you, like about the ulična mudrost. And I wanted to give you also a little bit of a feeling of how this looks like, what happens there. This is in Venezuela, what you're going to see now. And how kind of the feeling and the vibe and everything goes around Latin music when it's happening. this is very traditional. This is my folklore. It's like the music I heard all my life when I grew up, and this is Venezuelan traditional music. Now, you're gonna hear now Carnaval, which is like, you have heard maybe about this Rio de Janeiro Carnaval. Now, you need to know that the carnivals happens all over Latin America and in the Caribbean and in Brazil and in Venezuela and in Colombia. Like, there are all these carnivals, and things kind of look like this. What do I mean by уличная мудрость, by street wisdom? Like, you see, like, this man, he is not an academic, he is not like an authority or something, but this is a person who is maybe a very powerful musical force in his community, and many people get inspired by him, and he like forms a part of many people's lives, parties, etc. And there you go. That's how the Caribbean looks. That's how the Carnaval looks. Everybody's on the streets. And you see, notice we're gonna discuss all of these things carefully as this lecture progresses, but wait, notice, you see, like, many people playing something, nobody directing anything. There's not like a guy who is saying, no, you stop, don't do this. Everybody's kind of like understands what they have to do intuitively. And it's a very intuitive type of music. Huh? Yeah, it's like a lot about feeling. Yeah, it's a lot about feeling.
La vida del callahuense es el calipso. La fiesta más importante de los callahuenses es el calipso.
Callao, it's a little town in Venezuela, and he's telling you, like, the most important thing of the life of these people is the carnival.
Y en carnaval, porque van a escuchar calipso. La gente se siente intrínsecamente ligada a cada calipso que se hace aquí.
Okay, I just wanted to give you a feeling of how this thing looks like. Everybody on the streets. Whoa. Sorry. It's my sister. Let me mute this because I think she's calling me to say happy birthday, and she will continue in just a moment. Let me just mute. Let me close this here, and that's all. Okay, so now we go into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. So let's discuss the Caribbean for a moment. You see, geographically, the Caribbean has like kind of like is separated into a whole bunch of different pieces that they are. And these different pieces are related to who was the colonizing force that was there 100 years ago, kind of. So there is the Dutch Caribbean. That's where the Dutch people made their colonies. There is the English-speaking Caribbean. That's where the English made their colonies in the Caribbean. There is the French Caribbean and the Spanish Caribbean. Now, if you start looking at this, you will see like the Dutch Caribbean is sort of 315,000 people. The English-speaking Caribbean is kind of like, if you sum it all together, maybe it will reach to 1 million maximum. And if you see there is a little bit more people here, maybe Trinidad has 1 million. If you add all of this, it's kind of like 2 million people, or maybe 2.5 million people. The French Caribbean is sort of like 1 million people. The Spanish Caribbean is the biggest one. You see Colombia is part of it. It's 60 million. Cuba, 11 million. Venezuela is there, 35 million. And Puerto Rico. So if you put it all together, the Caribbean islands are just 18 million people. And if you see the extended Caribbean population, you get to a number which is quite of more important, which is 239 million people. So that's if you include Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela and all Central America there too. So the first point I'm trying to make is like, wow, isn't it interesting that the Caribbean islands are so influential in the world? And I want to answer that question, why? And we're going to discuss this today. The global impact of the Caribbean music is considered to be one of the mysteries of global culture. I'm taking this from a book called Caribbean Currents by Peter Manuel, together with Michael Largy. And you should check this book one day if you can. It's really cool. It's a really nice book about Caribbean music in general and Afro-Caribbean music. So why is it so impactful in the world? It's a mystery. How can a group that represents 1% of the global population be so influential? And again, this is what we want to answer today. How is it that reggae, coming from a little impoverished area, Jamaica, can be so important in Hawaii and in Malawi? Like, why should it be that Cuba produces the style that comes to dominate much of the African urban music in the mid-20th century? On a metaphorical level, this is a really important thing. It's one of the first explanations of why Caribbean music is so influential. On a metaphorical level, the Caribbean has been linked to a fuse that connects the old world and the new world. Why do I mean by that? The old world is Africa. That's where humanity, theoretically, I don't agree with that vision, but whatever, taking the mainstream opinion about it, that's where humanity originated. And then Europe is kind of like a bit of a newer world than Africa, and Latin America is even a more new world than Africa and Europe. And because of the slave trade, Latin America and the Caribbean was like a hub where these two old and new worlds mixed. And so one of the first reasons that you can think of why this music became so influential is because it originated from a place that was the union of Europe and Africa. And so that's a really interesting idea. I never had thought about this. So some have argued that the cultural encounter that happened in African-derived musics in general. This is another argument, okay? Some have argued that because the African people encountered forcibly with Europeans, this produced some sort of like counterculture against Christianity. Because these people were forced to be Christians. I'm talking about the slaves, were forced to be Christians, and they kind of like rebelled against Christianity, and so they represent a little bit of like a first deviation in modernity away from Christianity and secularism. Sorry, and religiosity into secularism. So let me read this text a little bit better. Some have argued that the cultural meeting enabled African-derived musics to replenish the warm sensuality that centuries of Christianity had repressed in Europe, making Caribbean and Afro-Caribbean musics ideally suited to a distinctively modern aesthetic and social worldview, at last liberated from such inhibitions. So, what is the meaning of this if we see it from another angle? Another reason why Afro-Caribbean music is so relevant is because it filled a gap that was left when people migrated from religiosity to secularism. Like, people used to be more religious, they stopped being more religious, and the Afro-Caribbeans were pioneers in kind of like rebelling against this force that really oppressed them. So one of the reasons as well why Latin American music is so influential in the world is because it filled up a gap that was opened by the migration of people from religiosity to non-religiosity. Others argue that the uniquely modern expressive power of Caribbean music comes from the inherently innovative, open, and mixed nature. So, of course, this is a melting pot of cultures. Like the Caribbean is a melting pot of cultures because these African slaves were moved there without their will, and they were all put together with Europeans, and then some new people was born there, and there were some indigenous people there that was already living there before the Spaniards even arrived. And so this created such a mix, and it's kind of like, imagine that I make a lunch, I'm trying to make a lunch, and I think, wow, I don't know what these people like to eat, so I'm going to cook everything. And then something of them, they would like it because it's a mix of everything. So one of the reasons as well why Caribbean rhythms and Afro-Caribbean rhythms are so popular in the world is because they emerge from the union of a lot of cultures in one place. Whereas you see, Russia, of course, is like a melting pot of many things, but it's sort of like a Slavic country. It has been a Slavic country for 1,000 years. Like, Russia is not the implosion of people from all over the world arriving into one place. It's a bit different development. And so, yeah, this is another argument that we can use to try to understand why Caribbean culture is so influential in the world. So let me just finish reading this just to make sure that I didn't leave anything outside. Oral traditions are through and having heightened self-consciousness as being part of the mainstream Western culture and at the same time of its margins. Yeah, Afro-Caribbean culture stands at the border of Western culture in general, and that's another reason as well why it contributes so much. It kind of like has one foot inside the Western world and one foot inside the ancient world. This is a music production songwriting course and not an ethnomusicology course. So we will skip many of the details of the history of the Latin Caribbean music my main dream goal is to kind of show you how Latin American music, how Latin American layers can be used on production. But in order for me to tell you that, I wanted to tell you a bit of like the philosophy behind it and stuff. For more information on this, please check out this book I just told you, Caribbean Currents by Peter Manuel with Michael Lardry. So let's make some little historical meditations before we leave all this like background. The region that the Spaniards occupied in 1492 had a local indigenous population. So there were some people living there when the Spaniards arrived. This population was mixed with a whole bunch of Europeans and Africans that were put together there due to the slave trade, which was a very sad thing. Caribbean music has American roots and African roots. What I mean by American roots is like there were people there before the Spaniards arrived. So those indigenous people had their own backgrounds. And then African guys arrived. And so the indigenous and the Africans, they kind of like were both oppressed by the Europeans, and they kind of got together and said like, let's make some music. Okay, well, I'm kind of joking with that, but I mean, it's important to identify that Latin American music has African roots and American roots. The American roots, like the main source of those American roots were the tribes that were living there in ancestral conditions. They still live like this. I mean, if you go to Venezuela, you can find people that live like this nowadays, and they still practice all these traditions, and they have their percussion, their dance, all their way of assimilating their feelings, of developing their expression, their self-expression, etc. So yeah, people really live like this today. This video that you're gonna see in now, it's kind of like I have been in a place like this. I mean, I have really been in a place like this and I've seen people like this, this is people who live in this is not poverty necessarily. You can see it as poverty, but these are people who live in nature. They just live like that. You know, they don't have phones, tablets, computer, electricity. They don't have toilets. They live like their ancestors lived. Maybe you see like they get some things from the world, like that little metal vase or something, but they hunt, they gather, they build their own like hammocks, they make their own clothes. So yeah, just like as a reminder that these people are still there, and they still have that. And you see, dance and percussion is a really important part of their lives.
Rituals. The central square of the village cannot be crossed by the Chaponneau inhabitants.
Well, I said that this is not an ethnomusicology course. That's what I mean. So I mean, yeah, these things that you're seeing there now, there is somebody in Venezuela and in Peru and in Bolivia, in all Amazonia, in Brazil, that they are doing something like this right now as we're having this lecture in this moment. So those roots are still very much alive. So 4 or 5 million enslaved Africans were brought by the colonists into the region. And so there was already a Latin American population there of indigenous people living there. And then a lot of Africans were transported into the region so they can process sugar, literally. Like, the reason why the slave trade existed is so French and Spanish aristocracies can eat little bullichki, literally. So we killed millions of people just so we can eat sugar. That's why I don't like sugar. And I really mean this very much. Like, one of the reasons why I don't like sugar is because it reminds me of this. And I know that for you, maybe it sounds like, yeah, that's so exaggerated. Like, well, wait until you go there and you see it with your own eyes, the effect of this in the present. It's real. So the Africans were enslaved and brought into the region. And so we talked a little bit about the fact that there were some indigenous populations living in Latin America before the Spaniards arrived. And now we're talking about the fact that these Africans were brought there. And so this covers for us the American roots that we had of the people that were living there and the African roots. Both the American side, American and African side of the roots of the Caribbean music, they form part of ethnic groups that have very different languages and customs. I mean, the Africans and the Latin Americans that were there are obviously very different peoples. And at the same time, they have a shared general experience that they were both slaves. So it's kind of like, imagine putting a Chinese person and a Russian person and enslaving them and putting them together. And then there will be like this like kind of Chinese-Russian culture that evolves, which comes from the common fact that you are both slaves. And that will be, you will see, that will play an important role in understanding why Latin American music is also so influential in the world. So the cultural uprooting that this meant, I mean, this mix produced like a very interesting like formation of a new culture. And this create a new, creolized is a word in English that means mixed up. So it created a new set of mixed up cultures that evolved to become what Afro-Caribbean music is nowadays. There are some people who say that ancient Afro-Caribbean traditions do not influence the present. But of course, many people disagree with this, obviously. And there is a book that is called The Myth of the Negro Past. It's an old book that was written in the 1940s, which kind of like tries to connect African Americans in the USA with Africa. And so there is certainly a throwback into Africa that is coming from the ages. And yeah, I mean, this as you will see when we get there to hip hop, this is also behind hip hop and behind a lot of the things that we do today. Ancient African culture is a real part of modern culture, and through the journey of the black person, you know, from slavery to emancipation to where we stand today, when there was already an American black peasant and all of that. Like, this is the whole story of an oppressed group, and that's, I guess, one of the other reasons why this music is so influential to all of us. So, in music associated with Afro-Caribbean religions, like Cuban Santeria and Trinidad Orisha worship, one finds song texts that are in West African languages. So I mean, I'm just connecting this with the previous paragraph, that there are still things in our culture that are said in ancient African, and they are really in Venezuela. This still exists till this day. Some people use words that are ancient Africa. So definitely, so much of the ancient Africa, it's really a big part of all the Afro-Caribbean conversations that we're going to have. So one socio-musical characteristic of much of African music is collective participation. So I can, because I'm a little bit tired today and I'm not building my point so well, I feel. Let me just put this more clearly on the table. What I'm trying to say in this moment right now is that even though many people believe that ancient Africa doesn't have such an influence in modern day world, this is, I think it's not a true statement, and I gave you an argument for it. I gave you an argument. One of the arguments I gave you is like, hey, there has been even books written about this. Many people disagree with this idea, and there are even arguments, even words that we use nowadays that come from ancient African roots. And here's where it started to get more interesting. We act our music in a way that many ancient Africans did. What do I mean by that? We act, I mean we perform it, we play it. One social musical characteristic of much African music is collective participation. When we were starting, I was telling you, Latin music is very streetwise, like it's about street wisdom. Then I showed you the carnival, and you were watching all these people playing without a director or an orchestra or something. Because one of the main characteristics of Latin music, and this is really important for your music production, things that you're going to do, is that it consists of a lot of elements that are kind of happening spontaneously together, evolving without any sort of control. And I'm going to build this argument a little bit later better. One socio-musical characteristics of much African music is collective participation, a feature typical of many classless societies. You see, like, if you were a guy, like let's say some random guy in Italy in the 14th century, and you wanted to go and play in the orchestra, like you could just not go and grab a violin and just play there. Like you had to earn your way into the hierarchy of the society until some authority, which maybe is the older guy, who was there, like kind of setting up this orchestra and making it work and stuff. Then he will let you play, and then once you're invited, you can play. In Afro-Caribbean culture, it's more like, wanna play? There you go. Here's an instrument. Play. You know. Because it's a society that has no hierarchy, like no class, like who is the top, the bottom. It's more like a horizontal. And you will see that once you get this point, you will understand a lot about how this music is made. And if you understand how this music is made, you can start using this for your productions. And we will get there a little bit later. So, collective participation is a feature of many class societies that lacks occupational distinctions, that it's not specified, and there is not like really like a differentiation between whoever performs something and whoever consumes something. It's very common for all or most members of a rural community to participate actively in musical events, whether by singing, clapping, dancing, or playing instruments. So that's a really important point. This convention accompanies a conception of musical talent as something innate. You see, like Latinos, they don't see it like you will learn your capacity to play. It's more like you're born with it and go and use it, you know? And that's a very different approach. Let me just, this is something that starts on the mother's womb. So, I mean, the way we see it is kind of like you're born with music already. You can make it anytime. This is something that you carry from your womb. Our babies are kind of floated with music. And so I found the documentation of the previous process I just discussed, the process of the fact that babies come from the womb, with already a musical talent. And so I'm going to show you now the documentation of this process. And this is exclusive footage that I found for our course. It's only exists here. And it was generated in the jungles of the Amazonas state in Venezuela. There you go. You see, like, so babies in the womb, they already come ready to make some music, And we are very different about this than Westerners because we don't have this barrier of entry. And as you will see, this explains a lot of why Latin American music is how it is. In the realm of more distinctively music features, the most often noted of African music is the emphasis of rhythm. So obviously rhythm is really important. African music is really rich in melody, timbral variety, but most importantly, the rhythm is the biggest part, the biggest chunk of Afro-Caribbean background, And it's and the rhythm, it's what separates genres in between them, and it's the main focus of the performer and the listener's attention. So whereas European music, it's kind of like rhythmless. I'm talking about classical music. I mean, if you hear a classical piece, there is a percussion accompaniment to it, boom, but it's not like the music is built around the rhythm. It's more like the music is built around harmony and melody, and there is a meter, but the meter is literally just a beat, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. And you feed it out inside a bar. But Latin American music is kind of the opposite. It's just like rhythm, and then it consequentially or coincidentally, excuse me, has some melody and harmony on it. So much of the rhythmic interest.
It starts from rhythm. And then
Yes. Most of the rhythmic interest and complexity comes from the fact that there is an interaction between regular pulses and offbeat accents, polyrhythmia, carocha. Now, to tie together most of the things that I have been saying all the way till now, why, let me see if you can understand this. Why do you think this happened? Like, I mean, the fact that Latin American music is so rhythmical, and that there is one key thing that I said there that explains why this happened. But I haven't said it yet, but I think you can already imagine that. Tell me, Andrei.
Maybe because, you drum on different things, not particularly on drums, like you drum on a
Because you can
bucket or something.
You can
like
drum on anything.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good first point. Like making a percussion instrument is easy. Now there is another reason. Tell me.
Also, like just playing on the main beat is usually easy. It's like it's gonna fall
Right.
apart if we would do anything else.
I mean, if you were just doing like this all the time, it would be boring, right? Like, I mean, you need something else.
No, I meant the exact opposite thing. Like, if you come somewhere and they're all playing music, the easiest thing to do is like to clap.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
this.
and you're getting
and this way you can join.
And you're getting close. Exactly, you're getting close to where I want. Because Latin American music was a communal thing.
Yes.
Everybody is kind of like, I want to do something, and it's like, well, okay, just grab a stick, and here's a tree, just hit it, taka, taka. So because it's horizontal, you see, it's not vertical. Everybody can join, come in. Here it is. Like, just grab a stick and hit this, like whatever I was gonna say, hit this dog, and then the dog starts making and that's it. You're participating. So Andrei said, percussion instruments are easy to make. Grisha said, when you're looking at something, it's kind of like you clap so you can join. And I complete to this idea, you're saying like, hey, because it's very communal and horizontal, everybody can participate. It all gravitates towards rhythm, obviously. And so we are polyrhythmic babies. Now, I think, let me remember something here. Oh, yeah, okay, everything is cool. So I guess that we can, I was just checking that I curated my presentation well. Okay, we are polyrhythmic babies, polyrhythmic kids, and polyrhythmic adults. Like, that's how we are in Latin America. And actually, it's really interesting, and I told you this when we were in the foundation year, Like when I write music for Laps Around the Sun, Yaroslav is the drummer of this band. He kind of like explains to me what I'm trying to do. It's kind of like I write a song and he's like, oh, of course, you want it to be in 7/4 and you wanted this to be 5 bars, and then on the 5th bar move to 11/3, and then later you migrate it to a 7/5, and I'm like, yeah, sure, that's exactly what I wanted. You got it. And in my head I was just like tagadi tugadi tagadi patom turakada pa pa pa, and then tra trun trun. Okay, go. Like, and that's not such a formal way of making music, but that's it. We're polyrhythmic babies, kids and adults, and that's why we think like that. We were born and raised like this. So this is going to be a conversation on polyrhythm that I'm going to skip. Well, I mean, no, yeah, I see. I was afraid of having made a mistake, but no. When 2 or more regular pulse of patterns are combined, the result is what musicologists call polyrhythm or polymeter, which is common in all Central and Western African music. So I'm just trying to tell you that polyrhythm is a really big part of our culture, and you already understand why. I mean, like, everybody participates, and so there is no director, and then everybody's doing percussion, and I mean, if you put everybody to play something and there is no organization, what you're gonna get is a polyrhythm. Just some guys are playing a 4, some guys are playing a 3, and then they just kind of force it to mix together, and so you end up with something like that. I'm gonna build you a very typical, right now, a very typical Venezuelan rhythm. It's gonna be calypso. And you're gonna see you're gonna be able to imagine how like kids would be trying to play this or something like that. So look at this. I'm gonna load here some, to keep my traditions clear, I'm gonna load my 707 that I always load for so many years. 707 core kit. And later there will be a better explanation of how this is built. I just wanted you to feel this thing of like many people participating and how it feels. And this is gonna be our first approximation to how to use Latin rhythm. You already know that if you want to create something Latin, you have to think about a lot of people trying to do something at the same time, and that's going to help you to be able to conceive it. So let me just go like, I'm going to play some typical thing. And that's going to be the basic of a rhythm called calypso. Later we will see it more carefully. So, and then if I go here and I'm just going to quantize this quickly, and then I'm going to show you when you do calypso, how is the second rhythm line of that? And you will see it's really unexpected. I hope that it's unexpected. Let me just quantize this quickly. I hope that it yeah, great. I guess I need to make a couple of modifications here. Okay, great. So, and then it starts here. So I have a loop. So imagine this. If we want to create something Latino, this is person 1. So the person 1 is playing that. Wait, person 1. And then this kind of rhythm is already defined. I mean, I know this rhythm. It exists and it has some rules to it. And then let's gonna play the second person, what the second person is doing. Okay, great. So, wait, let's try to record that. Wait. Oh, sorry, on top of it. Wait, yeah. So that's a typical calypso. Wait, so. Okay, sorry. Again. So, of course, in my head, I have a vocabulary of these rhythms because I grew up there and I can imagine them all. And at the end of the presentation, you will see there are like all the subgenres, and you will have like a YouTube video with the basic rhythm of one of those subgenres. Because I mean, my main goal is not to give you a history lesson of what Latino music is. I just want you to be able to create music using these resources. So let me quantize this. I guess that this is going to be a bit harder to quantize because you see now the grid is going to be more complex. I guess, let me see if I can, oh, no, I don't want to do that. If I quantize it like this, maybe this quantize wells in triplets. I will not know right now. This is not going to work, I think. No, from here I started doing it well. Yeah, that's good enough. Now, you see, like, these two people are playing things that are really polyrhythmical in nature. And then what can a third person be doing? A third person can be doing something like this. Wait, I want to duplicate this. Duplicate this. A third person can be doing something like. So let's see. Let's record that. Wait. Hop. Cool. So we end up with 3 people there, everybody playing something different. And let's carry on a little bit. All right. Another important feature of African music in general is the vocal call and response situation. You know, also imagine, like, you have a lot of people in a room, or not in a room, in a field, and they're trying to make some folkloric event or some kind of like thing, and so everybody wants to play at the same time, and there is a point when the whole thing starts becoming a bit complicated, and so people start taking turns, naturally start taking turns to sing or to do something. So what do I mean by this? For example, we all start playing, there is some beats, and then we start screaming something, la, 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 and then the other side of the crew that is there with us also wants to sing at the same time as us. There starts to be a conflict, and we ended up in a situation when I sing, and then when I shut up, you sing. And so we end up with something like a call and response, you know, conversation between us. So, and that thing also happens to the people who are making the rhythm. And you're going to start noticing a pattern in order for you to build Latino rhythms that usually, because it's kind of like, imagine, you are playing, I am playing, I also want my moment of fame, you know, that people know what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to play when you don't play. So I'm going to be looking at what you play, and I'm going to play when you don't play. And that's one of the other reasons why we end up in a polyrhythmical situation. Look at this, look at these beats. Because you need to think about the sociological phenomenon. A whole bunch of people together in some square or some stuff, everybody playing at the same time, the whole thing gravitates to either white noise, everybody's playing and singing at the same time, or it gravitates towards everybody kind of intuitively figuring out what's going to be their moment, you know, when they play. Look at this rhythm. Look at what's happening there. Rarely elements touch each other. They're kind of avoiding each other. Like, I mean, maybe the way I build it, actually this thing, I wanted it to be like this, but I just played it wrongly. Well, I put it wrong. But you're going to see that this is a factor. So you're going to start seeing that people tend to gravitate towards being away from each other. And this also applies to the way they sing. And so we end up in a situation when we have a communal performance that has everybody trying to find their own space. And that in order for them to find their own space, they're going to have to use a resource like a vocal call and response in order to be able to achieve something. If not, it's going to be white noise. So that's a really important part of Latin American music. And I'm going to give you a good example. In the latest Mars Volta single of the new album, the video came out. It's a very beautiful video. The song is called Backlight Shine. We're actually going to hear it later. This song in particular, so I don't wanna spoil it, but I just wanted to talk about this call and response. The end of the video is this percussion moment. You see, there is a person singing like candela. There is this always constant conversation between she called, I respond, she called, I respond. And by the way, I personally, this concept of like call and response, you know this from our work together from the past. It's such an important concept for me. When I write music, I'm usually thinking like about element A talking to element B and what element B is going to respond. So we're going to definitely be using this in our productions. So, okay, That was really cool. And another thing that happens a lot in Latino or Caribbean music is that we use a lot the resource of ostinato. Ostinato in music theory means repetition of something a lot of times. It's like la 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 la, and then I'm like 5 minutes later, and then 10 minutes later, and you're like stop, and it becomes so repetitive that I start enjoying it. And so, because again, like these are very improvised things, people don't know what they're doing. They're just kind of like improvising and seeing where the wind takes them. And this means that they end up repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating a lot. So I don't know, I feel that I can do a better job at something, and I'm going to improve that right now. I'm going to add one slide here, and I'm going to create it right now. Let me just take this slide, little slide here. I'm going to add what slide here, and I'm going to summarize kind of everything I just said, so we can proceed towards another thing. So a summary thus far, because I don't feel I did a good job at delivering this with a better punchline. So first point, Afro-Caribbean culture is a bridge between the ancient and the new worlds. Afro-Caribbean culture emerged as a response. Modern Afro-Caribbean culture, I would better say like that. Modern Afro-Caribbean culture emerged as a response to slavery, to the slave trade. Better to say that, to the slave trade, and united two cultures that were separated under. Well, I think I just put here united two cultures. That had different elements, but one major common experience, which was slavery. The other thing that was established thus far was like Afro-Caribbean culture emerged partly. I'm going to put here the word also modern Afro-Caribbean culture emerged partly due to partly as a response to Christianity, and it filled a gap that was left by the migration of people from spirituality to secularism. The other idea that I put on the table there was secularism means not believing in anything, like being non-religious. The other thing we established here is that Afro-Caribbean culture is horizontal in nature, and I'm going to put here no hierarchies, no clear social hierarchies.
It's like we don't have the worst, the best.
Yeah, from us, from Western. That's what you mean, right?
I mean about the postmodernism, the last lecture,
Yes.
And if they have horizontal, like
Yeah.
no worse, no bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're a bit different, because if you go, there is a really funny, not funny clip, but if you go to an African tribal person, you tell them a man can be a woman, he will tell you no, a man cannot be a woman. Are you crazy? Like, they don't have like this flexible worldview that we have. They just didn't develop these hierarchies that we developed because we developed those hierarchies because of the specialization of labor. It's like, you're a worker, I'm an aristocrat. Oh, the chair just broke. You're a worker, I'm an aristocrat. And they didn't develop this. It's not because they're postmodernists. They didn't develop this just because they never developed this specialization of work, of labor. So no clear hierarchies, and this applies to the way they make music. Musical events in this region are participative, everybody participates, and opened for everybody, for everyone. So because everyone participates at the same time, Afro-Caribbean music tends to gravitate towards rhythm, be heavy on, relies heavily on polyrhythm, and also uses the resource of call response a lot. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, let me remind me something here, because I gave this lecture a while. Yeah, my thoughts on the matter are down there. Yeah, I think that I'm going to switch a little bit the order of things, and I'm going to just move this here and just put it up here. Sorry for that, for doing this right now. Then we will talk about the instruments. Go ahead, of course. So we could make a full seminar of one semester about all the nuances and details of Afro-Caribbean music, but I like to focus more on the things that are useful to you right now so you can expand your musical vocabulary. A lot more theoretical background. In this case, I'm repeating the thing, but because I put you the book here actually, so you can download it. I guess that I can just sort of like forget about it when I put it above. Excuse me for that. And but here you have the link to that book in particular if you want to explore it. Now I'll give you my own thoughts on the matter. Wait, sorry, I lost here. Before we go, I mean to the next part. I give you my own thoughts on the matter. Latin music represents the joyful sorrow of the person who has nothing to lose. This for me is a very, very, very important sentence. And it's like if you're a slave and then they already took away your freedom, you have nothing to lose. And this, you will see a lot of this echoed in my own personality. For example, the fact that whatever the adversity is, whatever is going wrong, I kind of always put a smile to everything, because I come from this mentality of like, we already lost everything, what else could we lose? You know, and that's the history of Latin America. So, and this, the joyful sorrow of the person who has nothing to lose, this is my thoughts on the matter. I'm not saying that this is the truth or that this is backed up by some writer or something. It's my personal experience as a Latin American. I think the Latin American music represents the joyful sorrow of the person who has nothing to lose, because we already lost everything. Slowly but surely, Afro-Caribbean music has become sort of the world's folklore. And I really stand behind this claim, and the reasons were explained to you a minute ago. You know, the Afro-Caribbean music became the world's folklore because of all the previous reasons we just discussed a couple of minutes ago. When you think in a Latin way, you seek to establish counterpoints and question and respond relationships between elements. So this kind of goes into your productions as well, and I would like you to start using this, or if you don't use them already. But we discussed this a little bit about question response and counterpoints. Understanding Latin rhythms will naturally drive you towards polyrhythm and the fountain of music that emerged from this musical tool, obviously. In contemporary productions, the Latin layer of things, yeah, we're now like discussing my thoughts. This is not like the truth. Yeah, just in case. Gotcha. In contemporary productions, the Latin layer, it's usually a percussive layer that if you don't mute it, maybe you won't notice it. But if you dare to remove it, the song will be destroyed completely. So that's kind of where we want to get with this module, that we can do a little bit of Latin production and then remove it and see what happens if you remove it. I invite you to explore the songs and styles I put ahead. You will see there is a lot of material. And to take from those elements some things that you can add to your productions via shakers, güiros, congas, bongos, etc. And I just want to remind you that Moscow is full of Cuban people. Go and find them. You went some bar, Argentinian bar?
It was a game, football game.
Da,
We were watching with them.
Yeah, of course.
They're amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Really warm, and they want to dance.
Yeah, and we dancing with them.
Awesome, awesome.
It was really
Yeah, of course. And so, okay, talking a little bit about instruments, I want to discuss a couple of instruments here that maybe you don't know, maybe you know, maybe they can become part of your musical sort of vocabulary. There is something called the bata. It's a little drum that it looks like this and it sounds like this. Let's just hear it right away. Sorry. So initially he is just playing the clave, and look at this. You see, like now you get a little bit more of a feel. Now that I gave you all this context, it's like unorganized, street-wise, everybody participates, music. So let's go and play. If we all play at the same time, we're gonna end up just clapping. So this is a super molly rhythm. If I were to rebuild this, look at how you rebuild this. You have to start by the clave. And that's sad that Yaroslav couldn't join us today, because Yaroslav was talking about this very cool. You saw it. Tac, 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 tac. Look at this guy. So let's build it. So we have a clave there going on. And again, my dream is that this rhythm stop being something foreign to you and that you can start using them. So the clave that this guy was doing was this, right? Like, I'm going to start from here. So it was like this. It was like, by the way, if you're a Latino person, there is, let's see if you can guess this. What is the thing that you hate the most in the world? I'm obviously joking, and I don't expect that you will answer me this question rightly, but if you're a Latino person, what is the thing that you hate the most in the world? Latino percussionist, let's put it like that. What's the thing that you will hate the most in the world? Guys online, you have... Huh?
The grid.
The grid? You're almost there.
Strong beat.
The strong beat. Yes, that's... I cannot live with the strong beat. It's like, I don't care about the strong beat. For me, there are no ones or threes or anything. There is just like a one all the time, you know. So, okay, let's... That was the first thing that you had there happening. The second thing that you had there, I'm trying to build this. Tuta, 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 tuta. This guy on the back. So you see, we're all kind of have a hyper beat. And then I can count with him even though we're playing something different. So I had this clave. And the other element that was there was... It was kind of like... Tuta, tuta, tuta. You can see it back there. This guy there. Tuta, tuta, tuta. He is playing an instrument called the bata. Tuta, 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 tuta. So we can even build it separately. Imagine. It was like this. So it would be like... And then let's just kind of... I guess that I can quantize this, I hope. Let me try. Quantize. And so, and then I am here, right? And I will be like this, and then I have this. And so, I mean, now after this lecture, I hope that you can open any of these rhythms and just start imitating them and copy them and think about them.
Your mic is dead.
Sorry? Sorry? Mic is dead. Just a second. I'm going to get a battery quickly. Just a moment. Yeah, you can entertain the guys there. Say hi to them. They right here.
Hey, ребята, чё, как дела?
Привет, дома сидим, вот.
Блин, а как вас увидеть?
Она в аватарке нашу видит.
Блин. Блин. Йоу! Все, я нашла вас. Ну, в общем-то, да, сегодня лекция про латинскую музыку. Вот так. Все, да, вернулся.
Professor Lira, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Let's continue. So let me switch this off and go back here. Okay, so I was doing this, and then the third element I can see there. Aha, it's ta 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 ta. So let's build it individually. Let's just record that. And 3 and. And notice that. Notice how we kind of like are always skipping. We're trying to make syncopas all the time. So let me try to quantize this right away. Great. It was fast. So let's build it up together, and what we get is something like this. Well, I mean, I need to change the sound, I guess. Let's put it like, just so it's a right, whatever. You can change any sound. Okay, cool. So we built some rhythm there. And I guess that one of the difficulties for somebody like you to approach to this music before this lecture, I hope that this lecture can help you to open it. It's like maybe you were thinking that these people were really trying to formalize what they were doing. Like, oh, like Yaroslav, like I was saying, oh yeah, I just really want to play a triplet. Now I play. No, it's just like really from your belly, you know. And that's how it is. I used to joke with my friends, like with Lele. He was the drummer of Laps Around the Sun in London. He's from Chile. And we used to, when we were calling each other, it was like, yo man, what's up? Hey man. And I would say, and he would be like, you know, it was just the conversation was like a rhythm, you know, just joking. Okay, more instruments. Obviously, there is the conga, which everybody here, I'm sure, knows. I don't want you to confuse congas and bongos, and that's one of the reasons why I put them here for you. Like the conga is this huge guy, and the bongos is the little one. The conga, I mean, we can go, and I don't care right now so much to study the story of this instrument. This is not what this is about. It's a music production course. But so you can have a little bit of an idea of what a basic conga beat is, I put it here for you. And this is something that you all have heard a lot. This is one beat. There are going to be several here. Let me see if we get to another one. This is such, look, I'm going to show you a song immediately. I can recognize it in my head. Like I have the pattern in my head. Like I'm going to show you a song right away that just starts with that beat. I think is, wait, I think if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember exactly how this, there you go. It's exactly that beat. This song is amazing, by the way. It's a really amazing song. And that, by the way, that's Venezuela. I have been in that exact beach a million times. That's Choroni. Okay, so you saw it right away. That's so back to our presentation, and we had this. The previous one was more. That's the one. And you will see there are many different types of patterns. I'm going to try to get to the most classical one. And all of these patterns are known to us. Like we know them, like each one of these, like you just memorize them. Wait, I'm trying to see if I get the most basic one. This is super classic. Okay, upa tapa upa upo, upa tapa upa upo, upa. It's a very classic. We call it upa tapa upa upo. Literally, it's just like upa tapa upa upo because it's the type of hit you play. Anyways, I put you there some conga rhythm variations, and there is some bongo rhythm variations here too. The bongo usually is kind of like, think about something kind of like a trumpet and a trombone, you know, something like that. A trumpet and a horn, you know, like the trumpet is more like it flies around. It doesn't build large structures like congas build large structures, you know, that you can hold on. and they're a super great resource for music production. I'm gonna show you now a really quick case of myself in my own music using congas in a very unexpected ways, and how can you incorporate this thing into some other production. So in my first album, I released a song called Ice Formations. So you will see this thing is a whole electronic music piece. Yeah, it's a nice song. I really like the song. I'm gonna skip a bit. There are no.
I can find it on Spotify.
Maybe it's not there. It's possible it's not there.
Laps Around the Sun.
Laps Around the Sun, and the album is called No Sabes, but I don't think this album is there right now. Maybe not.
I see that.
Yeah, Bandcamp it is. Now, I will show you when we get to the congas. You will see. Right now there are no congas there yet. Let's move a bit. There are both. There's a cowbell. Короче, I mean, you can use these resources in modern contemporary music, of course, a lot. And even in rock music, in anywhere you want. So, okay, great. That's about congas and bongos. And I put here maracas. I mean, the next one that we're going to discuss is maracas. I guess that you all know what a maracas is. You know, this little... No, but I guess that you have never seen somebody playing it like this, unless I showed it to you, because it's possible that I already showed it to you, but this is how Venezuelans play maracas, and it's really epic. You will see. It's like maracacore.
Like you catch them in there.
Yeah, what? Yeah, and it's a whole instrument on its own. Like the maraca, when used like this, look at these guys. There's going to be another guys here in this video. These guys are crazy, man, what they do. So it's like maracacore. So anyways, I mean, I just wanted to give you a hint of like how my people can use maracas and how resourceful this instrument can be. And when we're thinking about instruments, I mean, my dream is that you guys look at this presentation next time you write a song and you're like, oh, look, let me see what is this cabasa, and then find maybe some samples or something and expand your musical palette. This is the cabasa. It's like a ball, not like a ball, like a cylinder with a metal.
Like a sun.
Yeah. It's like a shaker, like a super shaker. Yeah, it's really nice. And then the other thing that we have is in here we have a guiro. A guiro, you have heard this instrument a lot. Yeah, it's just like a piece of wood that is perforated, or I don't know, has some like strike-through perforations, and yeah, and you just use it like, you just scratch it. Yeah, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. And you see, like, all our instruments are kind of like very rudimentary, from the streets, can be built by anybody, kind of thing. And I have put you a special notation here, which is about a super Venezuelan instrument that is called the cuatro. I don't think you're gonna find one of these in Moscow unless you come to my house, because I have one. And it's a really great instrument, and it can be played very prodigically. This is a band that my parents and I were used to hear every Sunday. And this is a cuatro. It's kind of like a ukulele, but this is super Venezuelan folklore. And this is, I mean, obviously, as you can tell, this is pretty difficult music. I mean, this is very, very advanced harmonies. Like, imagine those chord progressions that we just went through now. Like, look at the bass, what it's doing. It's kind of like jazz too, like it's mixed with jazz and stuff like that. This is Venezuelan folklore, very much. And then we have El Furruco. This is a super Venezuelan instrument, and it's a really weird instrument, and I have played it myself quite a bit. And you see, it's kind of like a piece of leather with a stick in the center. And the father, the idea is explaining what you see, and then you make like some sort of basic bass frequencies. He's explaining like how to play it and stuff. That's really just like, I'm showing this for a pre-call, and you will hear them playing together how it sounds like, kind of like. Dale, igray. What? Ta ta tu ta 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 tu ta 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 tu ta ta. And they change the pattern, etc. Okay, and so, I mean, these are kind of like exotic instruments that I think you have never heard before, or maybe you have, but no, of course the congas I know that you have, and the bongos I know that you have, but I wanted to share it with you. Now, we are going to stop our lecture soon, and I just wanted to say, like, look, before we go and check out my favorites, you know, I made a selection for you, and I think that we're gonna hear the selection next week, because I want to go home kind of soon, because I want to go and enjoy my birthday with my family, so I don't want to stay so long. So before we carry to my favorites, I want to say that I don't expect that you will assimilate yourself and become a Latino and appreciate and come to love all the songs that I'm going to show you. We will see them next week. All I want is you to incorporate these rhythms and texture to your production so you can progress in your career. That's kind of my goal. Some of the songs I chose are selected because, so you can see how Afro-Caribbean rhythms have become a part of the Western musical canon. And I will give you an example of this today before we go. Some of the songs were chosen to show you the contemporary vision of the Afro-Caribbean vein. Of course, in my favorite artists, you will hear the Mars Volta, Bacalao Man, Monsalve and Los Forajillos, Le Merm, KP9000, and Babylon Motorhome. Yeah, sure. And what I don't have a Spotify's playlist, but I'm giving you everything here. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a huge selection that I made for you. And next week, I will describe to you a little bit better on why I made this selection and what's in here. Next lectures will start after this. But before we go to that, I wanted to show you something so you can understand how the world has assimilated these things better. I just wanted to go and show you one little thing here. That would be like a little bit of an initiation to one of the things that I want to show you next week. I'm going to play for you right now, because I don't want to forget this. I want to play for you right now. Soca. Wait, soca. I want to play with you some rhythm of soca. Just a moment. So this is we will talk about this next week better, but so let's imagine that rhythm 1 second. I played it actually when we started everything. I was playing this. Now look at this. Look at what happened if I speed this up. I just want to show you how this thing has filtered up to mainstream contemporary music. If I push this up like to 200, that's too much. Let me just bring it down a little bit. Right? Now, I think that it's very possible that Grisha knows this following song that I'm about to play. Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know, but check this out. So I mean, doesn't get any more New Yorker than that. Some white kid sitting in some like boat in. I mean, definitely 0% anything Afro-Caribbean about this. Super New Yorker, New Jersey thing, like. And here we go. There you have our soca there. I mean, obviously you can use these rhythms to make very interesting contemporary music compositions that have nothing to do with Latin music. Like, that's exactly...
I actually do know about the song, and that's the song I thought about when you sped it up.
Great, yeah, exactly. That's the point I wanted to finish. Okay, so considering that this is my birthday and it's my Latino day and it's a great coincidence, a great way to stop today. What are we going to do next week? We're going to open those references that I gave you, and then we're going to grab one of your songs and I'm going to create a Latin layer to them. Like, can be any one of your songs. Actually, maybe it would be cool to take, well, I will see which song I will take across the week, but that's what we're going to do. So we're going to hear the songs that I want to show you and I will explain you why I selected them. We are going to discuss the subgenres, like salsa, merengue, calypso. We're going to explain them all. And then we're going to make a little production case inside the Latin world, okay? Now, before we go, I want to show you this song. I don't know if today would be that case, but every time I hear the song, I cry. There's no way that it doesn't happen, you know. Because, and in this moment, we're not talking about my lecture anymore. We're talking more about my region of the world and about how much my people have suffered for the arrogance of others. For the arrogance of others that thought that they are better than us or that they can control us. I'm talking about Latin Americans. Or that they can position themselves above us in some way. And they came to our land from Europe with this hierarchical structure, you know, of like the top and the bottom in society, and they imposed that on us, and they destroyed our continent, basically, unfortunately. And Latin America is the daughter or the son of a mother who was raped, literally. So when you are the son or the daughter of somebody who are raped, you are born already with some, you know, some complications there because you were not born with love. Like I have told you, the origin of the name Venezuela, it comes connected to the word mujerzuela. Mujerzuela means prostitutka. Venezuela means shitty Venice. It's like Venice in Italy. Venezuela, it's like a Venice that is a crappy Venice. Because when the Spaniards arrived to Latin America, the first thing they encountered were some people that were living by the sea in some houses that were on top of the sea. So they were like, oh, look, it's like Venice, but like a shitty one. So that's the origin story of Latin America, and it's a really sad story. And this song is by Calle 13, and this song is called Latino America. And I will show you a little bit of the lyrics so you can feel this. Wait, Calle 13, Latin America, Calle 13. And I will translate them to Russian lyrics. Wait. I guess I'll translate them to English so we can follow it more easily. Wait, this is in... Ah, you saw it. Yeah, here it is. Latin America, Calle 13, English lyrics. Yeah. So check out how this starts. Again, we're kind of not in... We are in the lecture and not in the lecture at the same time. This is something more like me as your friend that really want to share with you because I want you to understand what's my background as a person and to understand what's the background of all these millions of people and yeah, how the child of a rape, you know, looks into the past and analyzes what happened and everything.
Muy buenos días a todos los amables oyentes en esta mañana de su radio Introvera.
This person is speaking in Quechua. It's a language that I don't understand. It's like speaking in indigenous language. And this is either in Bolivia or in Ecuador. Most likely it's in Bolivia. And I mean, these guys have Grammys. They have won Grammys. They are one of the biggest stars in the world, actually. And they really came to this little radio station in some mountain in Bolivia. They really did this. Like, okay, so now the song starts, right? Let's have a little bit of a read to the lyrics before, or let's go at it together. I guess. Like, I guess that this is the best way to show you this. Have I shown you this song, guys? Just in case, you can tell me if I'm repeating myself. You can tell me. I don't think so.
I also don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, there you go. The lyrics and the song. My skin is of leather, and this cuero is like the leather of the drum. Like, I am what was left behind, what they left behind. I'm sorry, but it will happen. It's no way to stop this. I am the leftovers of what they've stolen. A hidden town in the summit. My skin of leather, that's why I withstand any weather. I am a smoke factory. Peasant labor for your consumption. Cold front in the middle of a summer. Love in the time of cholera, my brother. This is a reference to a book by Garcia Marquez. I am the sun that rises and the day that dies. With the best sunsets, I am the development in raw flesh, political speech without saliva, the most beautiful faces I've ever met. I am the picture of a missing person. I am the blood in your veins. I am the piece of land which is worthy. I'm a basket with beans. I am Maradona against England scoring 2 goals. This in Spanish, of course, sounds amazing. I'm what supports my flag, the planet's spine in the I think that playing this further will be not so amazing for you because I mean there's a lot that gets lost in this translation and everything. This song is just incredible. Like, and I understand that we cannot get it in the same way. But I just wanted to share this with you, a little corner of my world there, of something that hurts me very deeply in my soul to know that this happened and that these people suffered all of this. And well, that's why, because of everything that I just said right now, before, you know, these are the people who lost everything and have nothing to lose, and Latin music represents the joyful sorrow of the person who has nothing to lose. When you have nothing to lose, all you can do is smile and just carry on. And that's our land, that's our people. And in this lecture, I tried to make some argumentations and characteristics of what can you expect from that region, why this music sounds like that, and why is it so relevant to global culture. So again, next week we will see these examples and do a production case with one of your songs, and we will add a Latin layer, and that would be it for our Latin explorations. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I don't know how it was, but I hope it went okay. How are you guys online? Everything all right?
Yeah, thank
It
you.
was great.
Yeah, thanks. I hope that, I don't know, like I'm today just very tired and I don't feel I'm performing so well, but anyways, I hope that everything is okay. So I thank you so much.
For the lecture.
Yeah, birthday lecture. I thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next week on another episode. Subscribe.
Have a great birthday.
Thanks. I'm gonna go to my family now. Just finish this 3 lecture day, and now I can have a bit of a rest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andriuka. Thank you, Dimitri.
Bye.
Thanks, Olya.